Yeah, so it certainly has been, just a very fast-moving time in my sector. Now, Roche bought a company for $3 billion last December, which was their entry into the obesity space. In May, they released the first set of data in the injectable, and then just yesterday, they released the first set of data in the oral. Now, these are very early stage data, small numbers of patients, but it did look very, very good. And in that context, the feedback that we're getting from investors is you just can't fight an obesity trade. And Roche had been an underperformer. So we're just seeing people kind of flood into Roche right here. But then the obvious question is, what does this mean for Novo Nordisk?
And others. I was actually going to ask you about Pfizer too, because they've also had an update on this part of the drug market. Ultimately, though, my question to you is this getting too crowded? Because Pfizer, Roche, everyone seems to want a bite of the weight loss drug market.
Yeah, I mean, we still very much like Novo Nordisk just because we do think that they have a very strong first mover advantage along with Eli Lilly. And it makes sense for all these other companies to be chasing this market because the numbers are just so big. So it's too early to call sort of what the competitive landscape is going to look like, let's say, in 5 years, because these trials still are early stage. Roche, for example, still has to run a phase 2 study, still has to run a phase 3 study. But I would expect that sort of this narrative of competition of orals versus injectables is really going to pick up steam in the coming months.
So you're still supportive of the Novo Nordisk case, but recently there was this study that showed that the efficiency of Eli Lilly's drug was higher than Novo, and shares actually dropped on that report. Ultimately, though, is there any sort of risk here for Novo Nordisk? Any sort of reason to be concerned?
Yeah, so the way we've been thinking about it is that, Novo was first with semaglutide, then Lilly had tirzepatide, which is a little bit better. But Novo is expected to have their sort of next generation drug, which is called CagriSema, reading its first phase 3 trial later this year. And what they have promised is a minimum of 25% weight loss. So if they're able to hit that target, then it looks like they, this sort of Lilly, Novo, that they're both going to remain ahead of everybody. So that will be a very, very important catalyst for Novo Nordisk.
And we're going to hear from Novo in early August about their latest set of results. Just outline for us what sort of key items will you be looking at when they report next?
Yeah, the first thing that we're going to do is go straight to that Wegovy number and see how that looks because we track the prescription data. It does look like we're really finally starting to get a ramp in prescriptions in the United States. And then that is leading investors to expect that they will likely raise their revenue guidance for the full year. So those are the two things that we're going to be looking for. How did Wegovy do this quarter? And then are they going to raise their guidance for the year?
I'm also noticing quite a lot of comments stateside. This has been going on for a while, but they seem to be getting louder and louder about the fact that some of Novo's drugs, for weight loss, of course, are actually too expensive. Is that narrative likely to change after the election, or is that pressure likely to continue?
Yeah, that's a great question because we're getting more and more questions from investors about, what does the Inflation Reduction Act mean? We're going to find out the Medicare negotiated prices later this summer. Novo is expecting semaglutide to be added to that list for 2027. But obviously, we're not quite sure. If there's a change in administration, would they change any of these drug pricing components of the Inflation Reduction Act? That's a question that is certainly coming up a lot more. How will Novo's pricing be affected going forward? We don't really have a gauge as of yet, but it's something that investors are paying more and more attention to.